Welcome to the Mind Solution podcast with Sarah Maud. The Mind Solution podcast is for leaders like you who are passionate about well-being in the workplace because you understand that a strong, resilient and happy workforce is the key to your organisation's success. The Mind Solution podcast is here to help you. So join us every week where we'll share with you powerful insights, strategies and know-how to ensure that your people and your organisation are truly thriving from the inside out. Hello there and welcome back to another video in the High Performance series. My name's Sarah Maud. I'm the founder of the Mind Solution International. And in this video, I want to talk about one of my favourite topics, which are beliefs. The beliefs that are getting in the way of us really experiencing life in the way that we could experience. The beliefs which are holding us back, that are limiting us, that are getting in the way of us making quantum leaps to grow our business or to grow our career. Now, over the last 12 years, I've had the absolute pleasure of having front row seats into the minds of hundreds and hundreds of people. And so many of the individuals who I would absolutely suggest are high performers have reached out to me is because they've tried everything that they know to try, but something just isn't working. So they've read self-help books, they're hydrating themselves, they're eating well, they're moving their body, they're trying their best to make sure that they get good sleep, but something is getting in the way. It feels like they are butting heads with themselves. And I absolutely guarantee that in every single case, it's because of a belief about who it is that they think they are. A belief which has innocently been formed as an identity. And it's that identity that they are operating not only their lives, but they're operating their business from. It's like a piece of software that is governing the way that they think, the way that they act, the way that they behave, the way that they emotionally respond to situations. So I've come across people who, for example, have labelled themselves as perfectionists. And because they believe that they are perfectionists, that they really struggle to delegate. I remember working with one chief exec in a major advertising agency in New York, and trying to get her to delegate was tricky because underneath the surface, she had a belief that I can't trust anybody. And so that belief, in a way, had served her because it was trying to protect her from things that she'd experienced in the past. But now that she was a chief exec and her business had grown, she couldn't afford not to delegate. She was exhausted, she was burnt out, she was working crazy hours, but she'd felt this need to hold on tightly to things. But as we worked together, as we uncovered what the culprit was in the form of this belief, and we were able to transform that belief, she was able to see things for what they really are. She started to get a lot more comfortable with letting go, with delegating, with recognizing, these people, they're not going to do it exactly the way that I would like it to be done, but I can trust them to do a good job. And so life became much, much easier for her and also for the people that worked for her. I've seen people who, again, incredible high performers, but are operating under a shadow of imposter syndrome. Because underneath the surface is a belief that I'm a fraud, is a belief that somebody's going to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, yeah, actually, we've given the wrong job to somebody else. We've given you the wrong job, that somebody else should be in this job. And what I've really noticed is the higher that somebody gets in their career, the more prevalent that belief shows up. So people that are chief financial officers, for example, or managing directors who have worked their way up the career ladder and have achieved incredible results, but there's just this consistent sense of angst and anxiety that somebody's going to find out that they shouldn't have got the job. I don't see that quite as much with entrepreneurs, because entrepreneurs are the self-starters, but I definitely see it in organisations when people are being paid to do a job. But again, once we're able to address the belief, what's at the heart of it, and they're able to experience an insight, and we can do some healing to alchemize and transform that belief, well, then their inner landscape shifts. They start to show up differently. Now, I've seen individuals, and I've seen this both in business leaders and with entrepreneurs, that have set unrealistically high expectations of themselves in a bid to try and prove themselves, because underneath the surface they don't believe that they are enough just as they are. And so they're doing what makes sense to them, that if I just try harder, if I keep pushing myself, if I reach this limit, then I'll be enough. Now, they're not aware of this. Most of us aren't aware of what's really operating the system. It's like we've got these pieces of software that are operating our mind 95 to 98% of the time. And if we're not aware of that, then these pieces of software, in the form of the way that we're limiting ourselves, the beliefs that we hold true about ourselves, they're going to be governing the show. They're going to be running the show. And what I've seen, and I see this a lot with entrepreneurs, is the way that they have innocently tied their intrinsic wealth, their intrinsic value, their sense of self, who they are as an individual, to external success. So where the business is doing particularly well, they feel good about themselves. But actually where it's not, the relationship with themselves gets a bit tricky. Now, I actually heard Steve Bartlett talk about this on a recent podcast, where he described that he struggled to detach his sense of self, his sense of worth, with external success. Now, Steve Bartlett has achieved phenomenal things, but even then, it's a wonderful example of how our mind, if we're not attuned to the truth of who we really are, can create insecurity. And that insecurity is about that sense of self. And one of the reasons that I love working with beliefs is because, for me, it's very easy to spot where somebody's tripping themselves up. It's very easy for me to pick up on the language that they're using, the stories that they're telling, where they've been innocently holding themselves back, and innocently holding themselves back for most of their life. Because the truth about beliefs is that the vast majority of our core beliefs are created by the age of 5. Now, at the age of 5, I could only ever understand things from a child's perspective. We can only ever understand the world from our current level of consciousness, from our current level of thinking. But these beliefs about who it is that we think we are, these beliefs about the world, about other people, they get formed at a very young, innocent age. And if we're not aware of them, if we're not working with a personal development coach or as a therapist to transform these, to see what it is that we need to see so that we can upgrade our identity, then these beliefs are going to be running the show 98% of the time. And it's one of the reasons that for me personally, I work with my own coaches every single month without fail. For me, that's a non-negotiable, because as I'm working with people, I get to raise my levels of self-awareness. I get to raise my levels of consciousness. And it was actually through working with one of my other coaches, the fabulous Jamie Smart, that I saw for myself that I had innocently been attaching my sense of self, my sense of value to external success. And when I really started to see that, well, that was a game changer, because I stopped putting so much pressure on myself. I knew that who I really am is before everything that I've achieved. Who we really are is before thought, is before all of these ideas that we've formed in the physical realm about who we think we are. And the more that I know that I work on my inner mindset, that I raise my levels of self-awareness, I raise my levels of consciousness, then I'm also raising my identity. I'm really stepping into that identity that I am valuable regardless of what I achieve. And so when I'm working, I'm coming from a very different energy. And it's one that's not burning me out because I'm not trying to prove anything. And so that brings me to the whole point of self-awareness. You know, if we are unconscious 98% of the time, then I would suggest that we're pretty unconscious. So raising our levels of self-awareness are absolutely key. And as I just mentioned, one of the ways that I do that is through working with my own coaches, because I can't always see the wood for the trees, because the mind, it likes to play hide and seek when it comes to our own stuff. But one of the other ways that I raise my levels of self-awareness is something which I do pretty religiously every single day. Doesn't matter whether I'm on holiday, doesn't matter where I am in the world, and that is through journaling. And I just love to buy beautiful journals. But journaling, what that does for me, and it's something that I encourage my clients to do, is to spend some time at the beginning of the day just having a stream of consciousness. If there are things on my mind, it's to get them out on paper, but also to use journaling prompts. I can do a far better job of coaching myself through journaling prompts. And what journaling also allows me to do is religiously every 6 months I go back through my journals and I read them and I pick out, am I still tripping myself up? Am I still following certain patterns of behaviour? What have I learned? What's shifted? What have I seen for myself? How have I grown? Because when I'm able to look back at the last 6 months, that also lets me know what is it that I need to focus on. If I want to grow as an individual, if I want to consistently grow my mind, develop my mind, well, I need to know what it is that I'm working on. So if you are wanting to grow your mind so that you can perform consistently at a high level over time, and that you're not continuing to trip yourself up with limiting beliefs, You know, the only game that we're ever playing is the one that we play with ourselves, as I heard from the words of Emma McDevitt. And I think that is so, so true. The only game that we're playing is the one with ourselves. But if we don't know the kind of game that we're playing, then how do we know how to even play the game? So I invite you to start to journal every single day. Now, if you've never journaled before, you might just sit there with a blank page and think, I don't really know what I'm supposed to write. ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT to give you some journaling prompts so that you have something that you can start to reflect on within yourself. So I hope that this video has been insightful for you. I'd love to hear what has resonated with you most from this video. So do pop your comments in the comments box and look forward to the next video. Bye bye for now.